Now, startups aiding Africans abroad to send money back home are rapidly growing as remittances to Sub-Saharan African economies hit record levels. Lemfi, for example, that raised $53 million after surpassing $1 billion in monthly transactions this month. The Tanzanian startup Nala expanded into the Philippines and Pakistan. That follows a $40 million funding round. Both companies highlight an emerging wave of innovation in a sector that's forecast to bring in $56 billion into sub-Saharan economies in 2024. CGTN's Daniel Kijo sat down with Nala's CEO Benjamin Fernandes for a conversation. This is part of it.
How have the last couple of years been for you and your company Nala? Tell me about how business has been.
Quite challenging. Lots of growth for us as a business. Business grew 72 times in the last 20 months. The team grew from 7 people to 150 people. Offices across 11 countries in Africa, 3 countries in Asia, the UK, Netherlands, and the US. 60% of our revenue comes from the United States today, and that wasn't the case when we last spoke a couple of years ago. And we're one of the largest cross-border payments businesses across the African continent today, which was never the case 2 years ago.
Tell me about some of the facts and figures of the sector, the potential, the growth over the last couple of years. What is happening in the sector?
Today, you see 2.4 million Africans leaving every single year for opportunities across Europe, Australia, the Middle East, the United States. And a lot of these people have a need to send money back home because they're their families, their relatives who are relying on them back home. So we find people sending up to 30% of their income on a monthly basis back home to their loved ones. And we see this pattern only increasing. So today, the data formally states that $111 billion is sent to Africa a year. I think that number is massively understated. It's probably around 300 billion today. And that's only going to increase over the next 10 years, especially with the population size growing. So there's many wins that are in place to increase the size of remittances being sent back to Africa every single year.
Now, with all that growth, there certainly must be some tremendous opportunities that open up. Can you touch on these opportunities?
I see many opportunities being created. For example, I don't think people should just send money home. I think there's an opportunity for, let's say, insurance companies, health insurance companies to enable diaspora abroad to buy monthly insurance plans for their families back home. Governments have an opportunity with local T-bills. It creates opportunity for diaspora to invest into local T-bills instead of governments trying to rally folks locally in the market to invest. If people abroad can invest in local T-bills while there, it creates a massive opportunity for them. So I think there's many patterns of businesses that will keep growing. A lot of diaspora want to buy houses and homes or invest in property back home, and I think that sector will grow massively over the next 10 to 15 years.
And obviously, any sector faces challenges. Tell me a bit about some of the challenges you're facing with all this expansion. It's great, but there must be challenges.
Lots of challenges, Daniel. They're endless. Firstly, regulation is a big one. We need to make sure that we're complying with every law in every jurisdiction that we operate in. Every government, every central bank has a different law around how money is brought in. Local banks and telecoms is another one. I think a lot of them want to keep costs and fees very high for certain types of customers, and it's difficult because you're always trying to make it cheaper. Thirdly, it's around the dollar shortage. So you can't talk about cross-border payments in Africa and not talking about the dollar shortage. So the dollar shortage in Africa's trade deficit is only increasing every single year, and that's very challenging because when you bring dollars in the market, large importers want to buy those dollars from you, but you have to sell them to the bank. And so there's always this massive discussion on who you're going to sell your dollars to and what does that look like in the future. And the macroeconomic factors of how that affects the country locally are at play. So those are things that we have to think about consistently.
What do you see in the coming future? What potentials do you see when you look forward? What is to come?
Yeah. So look, this year we're focusing on expanding our business across Africa. So we're launching 18 new countries this year. It's a massive pain. It's a lot of work. So 18 countries across Africa and Asia. So we'll be doing that. So we just launched India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Philippines as new markets for us. And obviously with AI coming into place, how can we automate a lot of flows that were very manual and processes that didn't have to exist before? So I think that's really exciting, and I'm really excited about the future of technology and how it affects and makes cross-border payments cheaper, especially in many markets.